Hello and welcome to Wrestling and Everything Coast to Coast with your host, Buddy Sotelo Esquire, and wrestling's premier photographer, Dr. Mike Leno. Dr. Mike, would you like to introduce our guest for tonight?
Well, I've been trying to get this gentleman quite a bit for the last couple of months with the help of Alan Bolte, who was the Cow Palace, Roy Shire's ring announcer and program maker from December 73 on. He's a local West Coast wrestling legend. He's done a lot for our community. He has you won't believe some of the stories about the great Buzz Sawyer that he has to tell. A lot of Buzz Sawyer talk, the feud with Tommy Rich, and put him on the map. But Psycho Johnny Payne, brother, that we were talking a little bit about. Well, tell us. I want to start, and then I'll pitch to Russ. I want to start with, like, you grew up on Roy Shire wrestling. When I was his ringside photographer. Is odd because I was flying up from LA before I moved up here to shoot his bigger shows. And when I moved up here, I was immediately hired by his publicist, Davey Rosenberg, to shoot for the program. And I could use those photos for the mags. But tell us about, like, what captivated you, or how did you get caught on wrestling? And then just expound on that one. Because, man, you had some of the best wrestling to watch at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, the best, man. When you watched it back, when I was watching it back then, you respected it. You were able to follow the storylines. I mean, did they ever make a better worker than Ray the Crippler Stevens? I don't know. Why isn't he in the WWE Hall of Fame? Maybe then it'll become real when they have him in. Pat Patterson. I loved them all.
You were watching the same time that I was watching too. We were about the same age. How old are you? You're like 50.
I'm 57.
I'm 56.
Okay.
My brother's 57.
Yeah. Well, we would drive by the Cow Palace and see the marquee and see them names. Excuse me. See the old school posters. That was just a nostalgia that's gone. But man, that meant something. That was cool. Those guys really, truly drew. Now, respectfully, everything goes and grows. Now it's about going to see the whole show. I tell people, if you go over the last 20 years, you go to a WWE, WWF, whatever you want to call it. I'm older. Yeah, you guys remember WWF?
WWF.
I call it the WIF. The WIF, WHIFF. That's WWE for me. We call it the
Tri WF. We go back that far.
And if you go to those shows and you don't get your heart going, it's like going to a Raider game, sitting in the black hole, back when they were in Oakland, not, they're gone now. It's not the Raiders anymore. Sitting in the black hole with the Raider Nation. And it's like them going in from the 10-yard line at WWE show the whole time. It's all about, the stories are different. It's all about quick and entertainment. And I remember when I was in the business and I joined with Buzz, and the business was changing. That long, drawn-out headlock with Sergeant Slaughter telling you the story, it was gone. And I remember that little conflict with Sabu and the guys who were moving all around the ring, and Sergeant Slaughter, Tito Santana, because I worked with a lot of them up in Vegas. They were like, no, kids, you got to slow down. It was like Sabu was like, no, that era's gone. We got to, neither one would accept the other one. So I just
the old timers.
Everybody.
I want to get back to your childhood, but the old timers still say work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
I've heard that a lot from Sarge and all of this stuff. And just Russ, I think may not know. I think I've told him because I've shot in every venue, but I shot in Bruno's era. So we're talking Tri-WF. I shot Bruno versus George Steele against Spiros Arion, Don Leo Jonathan. Not a lot, but he didn't have to come to the ring with pyro, a girl, a robe, nothing. Just the belt. Occasionally a
crowd was different.
Yeah.
The people we could read, with the three of us, we could read a story back then. We could respect the feud. Now the stories and the feuds get lost unless it's the top two or three, and then,
But Johnny, let's go back to when did you first come across wrestling? Was it a friend who turned on the TV for you, or did you maybe with your dad, grandfather?
That was me. Me and my dad were watching it, and there was Ray Stevens and of course Pat Patterson, and all the supporting staff. Remember Chris Taylor, the great Olympic wrestler, come on and did a cup of coffee in the pro.
I thought he came in for like. So what year would that have been? Are we talking 74, 73? Somewhere.
Yeah, it had been 72, 73, and 74.
Might have been early.
Yeah, but now we have to take a calculator out you're like doing your hands. Now we need,
It gets a little complicated because Ray left to work full time for Vern in the AWA, and he actually got paired with Bockwinkel as the tag champs in 72.
Yeah, I remember that. And he was kind of older then.
But
hey, John, I wanted to find out. John, hold on a sec. I want to find out where you exactly grew up.
That was San Bruno, just south of the
city. Okay, that's great. I grew up in Tiburon. So and my uncle lived in Burlingame.
Yeah.
And so I was down there.
For people that don't know, those are two of the snottiest, wealthiest, wonderful areas of the Bay.
It is, not mine.
Tiburon, Belvedere, that's effing the biggest money.
We moved there before everybody was rich. We moved there when houses were still $60,000.
Top talent in Burlingame and Tiburon. Only the top talent lived there.
But we're talking like the Beverly Hills, Holmby Hills, Century City of Northern California. But
Russ was top talent.
I was going to say was Ray would come in and do spots if he was on his way to Japan or something for the IWE group there, the AWA related IWE in Japan. He'd come in at least once or twice a year for Roy Shire in San Francisco, even after he left. So did you get to see the turn of Pat Patterson when he was still wearing
the mask on?
Yeah, loading up the mask.
Yeah.
And because he was paired. Billy Graham came in with Dr. Jerry, really brief, in LA. He got sent up by our booker, Jules Strongbow, to Calgary to actually learn how to wrestle because Jerry Graham really hadn't taught him after discovering him in a gym in Phoenix. And then after Calgary, his very first territory, well, other than LA, was San Francisco. We were paired with Pat as the NWA World Tag Champions. There were many versions of that, but this was Roy Shire's versions. And then I think that was like when the Pat turned face, I forget the angle because I wasn't living up here yet, with Billy. And then Billy came down. So he was the Spirit of America with the fringe leather jacket. And he came down to LA in April of 72. And that's when Superstar, the character with the tie-dye, was born. And then from there, he was there for about 5 months, feuding with John Tolis and teaming with Ernie Ladd and Killer Kowalski. And then he goes to the AWA, and it got more colorful and, blah, blah, blah. But so was your dad a fan? So I think Russ would probably said, was your dad a fan? And then he turned you on and said, let's watch this or something like that, or no?
Just pretty much just myself. But, of course, he took me to a match or two. He took me to when Don Morocco won that Battle Royal.
I was there.
Yeah,
I was there.
Yeah. Took me to see Andre. Yeah. I remember when Don Morocco, Harley Race wrestled Dean Ho.
Yeah, well, at every Battle Royal from about 76 on, Harley would come in every time, and whoever won the Battle Royal usually would face him in the main event for the title. Roy's Battle Royals were the only Battle Royals anywhere that were on first until Baba started doing it in 1990 in All Japan. But the reason for that was a lot of these guys were doing favors for Shire. They were on their way to Japan. And so they could fly to Narita Airport out of San Francisco. They say, well, that's how it evolved to being the first match on the show. So they could do that. And then they would lie and say the guy is injured. His advertised match wouldn't take place because he was already going as fast as he could in the cab to San Francisco Airport to get to Japan. So there were a lot of, like that one that you're talking about, the Morocco one, they'd advertised Dory Funk Jr. against the Sheik, Eddie Farhat, Sabu's uncle. And we were all marking out for that. I was ringside photographer. I could not wait to see that. And of course, the Sheik didn't show and Dory had to split. So, I'm
fascinated to hear about your stories about working with Buzz Sawyer. Because
that's what we're going to get into.
Moondog Mayne.
And Moondog.
How did you
they were both crazy guys, weren't they?
Johnny, how did you evolve from fan into what Russ was asking to seeking out somebody like Buzz to teach you?
Well, I knew I wanted to be a pro wrestler. So I'm playing football back when football was at St. Mary's College. It ended. I had my degree and graduated. And I'm like, and my dad says, well, what do you want to do? I go, I want to be a professional wrestler. He's like, it's like, great. And so I knew that there were jobbers, and I knew that enough to know that the local guys, they were just coming in and getting hand-fed, just getting killed. Whether they were good or not didn't really matter. They weren't in the clique. I knew there was something there, and I knew Buzz, well, wherever he went, he wrecked everybody. Didn't realize how bad it was, but so I called him, and he could have given 2 sticks, it said sticks, less about anybody joining when the money was flashed, and he was like, yeah, come on up. And, oh, man, I heard Al Snow talking about, and these other guys talking about getting abused in the school. Those were cakewalks. When you went to Buzz Sawyer's camp, that was, it was wrong. It was like, just
give some examples. Give some examples of what he did.
Well, we had this, he was a great amateur wrestler. And Buzz just was great. I mean, he just naturally had all this wrestling ability. That was innate in his somehow God-given mind and body. So we would get on the mat, and Ken Shamrock or Paul Brown or Mike Huff, God bless Mike, would stretch you a little bit, and then Buzz would jump on you. And it made your life a living hell for that several minutes you were on the ground. I mean, it was torture to be claustrophobic. I mean, you name it, claustrophobic, about ready to pass out. I'm just getting brutalized in amateur wrestling, stretched to where you're about ready to faint or worse. And I mean, I've seen the biggest, toughest guys. I remember Jimmy Badra, Mr. World, come up there, and good guys with good talent potential. They weren't going to go anywhere. And Buzz just stretched the heck out of them. Something happened where he fell into trust with me, for me, and said, I want you to be my partner. We're going to be a team. You're going to be my cousin. And we're going to kayfabe it from everybody, including Ole, who was going to hire us. And we're not going to tell anybody we're not really cousins. I mean, we're going to shoot it all the way. And so I was coming in as Johnny. We were at a bar one night, and I go, well, I have a name. I got 2 of them. And he goes, okay, well, what are they? Because we can't call you, we got to change it. I go, I got Johnny Hard. And he goes, well, we ain't going to use that one. And I go, okay, I got another one. I go, Johnny Payne. I ain't wrestled yet. I just been stretched by him on the mat for hours. And I remember still sitting looking in the mirror at the bar, and he kept looking at the scars on his head. He goes, Johnny Payne, I like that. A couple weeks later, he comes home, and he goes, because I was living with him, and he goes, you're Johnny Payne Sawyer. So I wrestled a few times with Johnny Payne Sawyer. Like we were at Mike, maybe you were there, Russ, too. We were at the Civic Center in San Francisco, and we were down in L.A. where the Lakers play, either Staples Center or
the Fabulous Forum.
Okay, the Forum. And I threw my bag in because Magic Johnson was playing there then, I think, or he had a locker, and I threw my bag in there. Hey, his locker looked different than everybody else's. You know what I mean? Like it was, it was Magic Johnson's. It wasn't, somebody, some bench guy. And so Ric Flair comes in.
Jack Haley.
Yeah, okay, anybody, pull a name out. Ric Flair comes in, and Buzz and I were there kind of early, and Ric Flair comes in. There's a few of the other boys are there. Steiner's Doom, Sid, Lex. And Flair goes, the Horseman, he goes, hey, yeah, I guess he didn't recognize the bag, whatever. He goes, hey, whose bag is this? Who's throwing it in this locker? Like, that was going to be Ric Flair's locker. And I'm sticking myself. This is my first match. And there's Ric Flair calling me out. in the locker room. Come on. I'm like, something like, excuse me, Rick, that's mine. And like, I'm going to go over and move it too. You know, I mean, I wasn't smartened up too much, but I was smart enough to know that. And, you know, Rick's the champ and everything, and you know who he is. And Buzz comes out of the back, Buzz Sawyer, and he goes, "Hey, Rick, that's my boy. He's with me." Everything changed. Rick is, "Oh, hey, Buzz. Hey, what's up, man? Hey, Johnny, yeah, leave your bag there. Let's go talk." You know, oh, and I was over like $1 million. But as soon as Buzz was gone, you know, he passed away not long after, everything was different. I had to reinvent myself and learn a few things about locker room etiquette, which I never learned well enough. But
he didn't teach you to go around and shake everybody's hand one after another.
No, he did. He just taught me, stay with me and listen to everything. And he was big on don't go with anybody. Don't trust anybody. And, you know, if like, you know, that kid, Big Fonz, he's working around up here, real good kid, big, buff, good worker. And I talk to the younger guys, I say, you know, yeah, you know, you go up, you give respect and you shake everybody's hand, but I was never into, maybe I should have been more into kissing up to him, but he didn't teach me enough about that.
You know what? Now I was asking before we went on air with Russ, the Buzz Sawyer versus Jerry Monty, that was at the San Francisco Bill Graham Civic Auditorium when the NWA came in. They came in with Crockett before it was sold.
Yeah, I was on that show. No, Buzz wrestled Paul Brown that match. I was there, and I wrestled Billy Monroe, Superfoot. Mike Huff wrestled Earthquake Ferris. And the night before in LA, I laid an egg, man. I choked.
At the Forum show?
Yeah, I wrestled. I blew up. You know, I'm going out there and like I'm trying to kind of pump up. Nothing's blowing up. Trying to get big because, you know, Buzz said you got to get so big, 280 pounds, so you don't take no bumps. You just be snug and borderline stiff. And I just wasn't hitting it. I wasn't.
Who was your opponent?
Billy Superfoot Monroe, good buddy of mine.
Yeah,
so Buzz comes up and we're in the back aisle ready to go out. And, you know, top talents there. Hey, knock it off.
Hey, we're animal friendly. You can bring your dog on the show
Okay.
if you.
And Buzz comes up and goes, you know, like, hey, you got to snap out of it. You're choking. You got to get ready to go because Kevin Sullivan was there. And Kevin wanted us to do the, you know, the crazy group like they had done with Buzz and Mick Foley and them. But then Buzz got fired because he rolled his hand and Jim Hurd was there and Buzz didn't like them. He didn't want to do jobs. And so my match just stunk. And so Buzz told me he'd pulled Kevin aside and started, so this is my idea. This is what we'll do. And Kevin was liking it, but Kevin tried to watch my match. And so Kevin actually told Buzz the next night, hey, I want to watch Johnny work a little bit. So Buzz goes to Billy and me and goes, look, when you run into that boot in the corner, you take it. You break your nose. I want blood. And Johnny, you put your foot, you know, you don't pull nothing. And I didn't. He took it and he bled. And it was just two guys who couldn't work real. I mean, it wasn't snug. It was just really stiff. I love Billy and he loved me. So we did what we had to do to get for our second match in our entire career. We probably wrestled each other 50 times. But yeah, so.
Let me ask, did Buzz smarten you up or how did you get smartened up from somebody else?
Yeah, and I was with Buzz in if you call it that, getting smartened up on, you know, got the basics down, got my image, my gimmick, you know, and how I was going to work. I asked him, I said, Buzz, I like it when you do that. After you hit somebody, can I do that? He said, yes. He said, Rick Steiner asked me if he could do that. And Rick Steiner asked Buzz, he said, and Johnny, you're asking me, yes, you can do it. I said, can I do this, this, and that, like you do? And he said, yes. So I had his blessing. And he, you know, year later, he passed. And I was running with the Iron Sheik, and we were doing some things. And Honky, you know, Honky Tonk Man pulled me aside and said, look, Johnny Payne, he liked me for some reason. He goes, you got to lighten up in there. He goes, you hit me like that, and you're never going to work again. He goes, you're too snug on everybody, and these aren't your boys from Buzz Sawyer's gym. You got to lighten up. And then, you got to show a little bit more grace in the locker room because you're walking around like you've been in the business for 20 years. And, so I followed Honky a little bit to get over, but yeah. And then I was telling you, Mike, the three billionaires that fired me, I was at with the Iron Sheik and in the what was that training center for the WCW, the power plant.
Power plant.
We were going to go do TV later that day or the next night, whatever it was. And we were at the power plant, and Jody Hamilton, the assassin.
Yeah, of course.
He was sitting in this big, expensive, beautiful desk. It must have been 120 degrees. And I asked him, did you see my stuff I sent you down? I think I was supposed to send it to Paul Orndorff and then him and Eric. I can't remember. And Sheik was with me. Sheik already had heat with the assassin because Sheik walked out and got that year's pay for not working. And when they wanted him to do the job to Sting. And then Jody goes, and he's got chew in his mouth, chop tobacco, and it's dripping down his chin, all over his shirt, and all over his beautiful desk. And he's sweating. He goes, yeah, I seen it. I like, something. And he goes, but Eric, I don't think he's going to like that spit stuff you do. He's not going to like this. And then I went off. I just got lost in it on myself. Really? You want to tell a young guy here that you don't like him spitting? It's a gimmick, Jody. I put an Alka-Seltzer in my mouth and I spit all over my opponent. Not some slob like you who's dripping chewing tobacco down. And I was lacing the swears in there. And Sheik goes, Johnny, grabs me with him. Let's go. I can't believe you.
That takes a lot of guts, I think, from what I've heard about Hamilton. He's not the kind of guy that you would just say
he was going to bully everybody, all the young guys. He was there to bully the young guys at the thing. But hey, man, at the camp. But hey, I started with Buzz Sawyer. Ain't nobody going to bully me. And now I'm with the Iron Sheik, who was the real, Mike could tell you about this, maybe you too, Russ, I'm sorry, the real bodyguard to the Shah of Iran.
Oh, no, he was a classic amateur. I remember he came in, Leroy McGurk sent him to Vern Gagne's camp. So that was the camp with Flair and Steamboat and Jim Brunzell and Bob Bruggers and a couple others. Sarge was in the second one. But he had all of these credentials as an amateur, legit Pan American.
Real deal, yes.
He was the real deal. Besides being a bodyguard, just as you said, for the show.
Yeah.
King of the suplexes.
Yep. He showed me the pictures with him walking with the Shah of Iran. If they go pick you to be the bodyguard to the Shah of Iran, I mean, that means you're bad. And Sheik, he had a hard time walking then and everything. He had that bad leg where he had that car accident and stuff. But there were a couple times when Sheik, Tim Horner tried to shoot on him, and a couple other guys, when we did the gimmicks with the Persian clubs, tried to attack him. Move like a cat. Bang, knocked the guy out. We were down at a military base with who was the guy who used to run the military shows?
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Shit. Not Magic Schwartz, another guy that promoted.
He worked with Al Burke, and anyway, we were running the military show, and with the TC Martin in Vegas, Sheik's spinning the clubs, yelling at the guys, spitting at him, USA Hatu, which was all work because he loved USA, and he pushed the Persian clubs down, and the dude in the military base goes to attack the Sheik. Boom, Sheik knocks him out. Boom, boom. Lays that big crooked boot on the kid's face. Military police take him out. The guy kicks the windows out of the Suburban and everything. Then we were in Vegas. Practically the same thing happened. Sheik knocks the guy out. He was like a cat for about 20 seconds.
Let me say this because Russ will appreciate this, and we'll let Russ ask some questions. I was the still photographer for Barry Blaustein and super agent Barry Bloom, who his clientele list: Jesse Ventura, Hogan, Hall and Nash, Lightning Kid, Sean Waltman, etc. But we came to all of those, and then to all of T.C. Martin's Vegas shows. They were shooting pre-production footage for Barry Blaustein, the director's Beyond the Mat.
So you were up there with me in Vegas a couple times. Yeah.
Footage because Van Damme was at some of those shows. Sabu, that's when he'd have like he was rebuffed by Heyman and Todd Gordon, who owned ECW. He wanted to be the West Coast promoter for them, so he just started using guys that were long gone or had just left ECW. Like he had, I'm sure you were probably on that show, Terry Funk chain match with Sabu, Cactus, Mick Foley. And then there were all these undercard guys like Sabu's condition for working for T.C. Martin was he had to give work to his buddies who nobody had heard of yet.
There was a referee.
Judge Dredd, Van Damme and Judge Dredd, and even Ron Reese, the famous basketball player. Remember him?
Yeah, I remember Ron.
He became Russ. He became the Yeti at WCW for like a minute.
Yeah.
He was a good guy. We loved him. And Bill Anderson was at a lot of those shows because he bought Barbie Blaze, if you remember, who was real
Billy
cute.
was at them all. I wrestled Billy. I just told this story the other day when he blew his back out, and he says he said he never wrestled again. Hey, he was a worker then. He goes, so TC tells me you Johnny, we're gonna build you. You squash everybody, kind of like they're doing at Goldberg. I do a minute, sell nothing, squash everybody. And I love all these guys I'm squashing, and so he's gonna have me work with Billy one night. And Billy comes up and he goes, "Hey Johnny, I know what we're doing to you, but can I dive through the middle rope, run across the ring, and you catch me outside?" And I go, "Really, Billy?" I go, "Well, if you want to try it, I'm not going to sell anything. I'll catch you. I'll put you down." But, like he hits me with like a hurricanrana type move and he falls on the cement. He does it and he can't get up. Sure. And he's on the ground. He goes, "Johnny, I broke my back." I'm like, "Billy, I'm going to go break the count about 3-4 times. But you got to get up somehow." Broke the count several times with my buddy David Hogue, the best referee there was. Yeah. Do you remember David?
Yep.
Yeah. And so finally, Billy was a man, dude. He was a worker. He goes, "Okay, you got to get me back in the ring." I said, "I'll get you in the ring. I just got to give you the DDT." And he couldn't even get off his knees. I gave him to the DDT on his knees. I got him in the ring, just barely. And then they had to stretcher him out and took him to the hospital that night. Thankfully, nothing I did. It was his idea to dive his 280-pound big ass.
Do you remember that shitty venue? We were at the White Trash Casino, the Silver Nugget, was our TC had his shows.
Yeah, perfect for the locals. That nobody was a tourist. Like if you were up there to have fun, you didn't go to those. They were all locals, man. I loved it. And when I went with Buffalo Jim to the MGM Grand when we did the WCW pay-per-view, they asked us to sit in the front row, blah, blah, blah. And I walked in, like 100 people, maybe I'm remembering it better than it was, all stood up, "Johnny Payne, yeah, WC," and they're all clapping but they were all just all locals, But
let's
yeah,
start.
So, John, I'd like to know about what match do you consider your career highlight, the best match that you've done?
Well, my work was never pretty, but I pride myself on this. I wasn't stiff, but I was very snug. And I loved all the boys. I told them that ahead of time. You were going to feel everything. I want to feel everything. Most of the time, you guys, I'm sure you've heard of the Navajo Kid.
Yeah.
Steve Islas, Navajo Kid. Loved him. Worked with him through his Indian reservations out in Arizona. Gator Wolf was doing something with it. And I'd say the Navajo Kid every night there in Arizona, we had our best matches. I'm the big wild guy, and he's from the reservations, the babyface Indian. And I don't want to disrespect, but the people from the reservations, the higher up men, we would sit after the show.
The tribal council.
Pass the peace pipe and become brothers. And, but when the Navajo Kid when I worked with Bobby Bradley and his brother Laney, you couldn't have a bad match because they were so good at moving around and they could take the heat really well. But Navajo was tough, and I hope I'm not forgetting anybody. So if you want to ask, when I wrestled Joe Applebaum, you guys know him?
I've worked many shows with him, actually.
Okay.
I was there for his training. He was in like the first or second camp at APW.
Yeah.
Modest, Donovan, and all of those guys. Mike Lockwood, who was later Aaron O'Grady, that you mentioned, and Super Diablo.
But Joe, I love Super Diablo. And I could have a good match with Super Diablo, who couldn't because he did stuff that was before his time, moving all over. But with Joe was borderline stiff. I was borderline stiff. So Kurt White, who didn't, he's gone now, but he didn't like either one of us. He come back.
Join the list. Join the list of many.
Well, he didn't like me.
No, he didn't like me either.
What? I deserve some of it. Because I was running the locker room, and I have a video. I'll try to send it to you sometime. The kid Jesus, nice guy, does the wrestling.
Jesus Cruz, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
He sent me a video. Here's where Johnny Payne gets fired. So when I wrestled Joe, Kurt White come in the back. And Kurt, I didn't see him give flowers to a lot of the boys working unless they were he was bringing in Ric Flair or something. He came up to us too. He goes, "Oh my God, I love that match. You guys beat the out of each other."
Oh, you can guess.
So it must have been good. And I wrestled Joe in San Francisco. Do you guys remember the shows at the Transmission Theater?
That was the
Incredibly Strange Wrestling.
Yes. Joe,
Dominic promoted those.
Who?
Dominic, the
yes.
American guy. He's still a heel manager with Marcus Jacobson. Marcus Mack bought APW when Roland died, so he's been a manager on and off for years.
But it's more like just picked it up off the curb because it pretty much there was nothing to buy with APW. Roland was flat out broke.
When I Joe hit me with his chair, and Joe goes, "I knew, Johnny, when I hit you, I probably crossed the line, even to you. And I knew and Joe goes up like this to the crowd. He's got that big 400-pound, big white back of his, probably some tattoos sitting there like that. I took that chair. I hit him so hard, the part of where you sit on in the chair broke. The pop rivets flew out. The chair thing, and he goes, "Eesh!" And he's staying, he fall in the crowd. And then I went through the crowd, pushing everybody out of the way to the street. And there's two San Francisco cops walking the beat. I go, "You cops, get over here. Walk me back through this crowd of losers, these scumbags." And those two police officers went right in. They loved it. They went right into it. They escorted me through the crowd and put me back in. And so that was kind of cool.
I got to say this, and then I want to get into the progression of the promoters you work for. You were kind of combination of Buzz and Brody, Bruiser Brody.
Yeah.
Without thinking it through.
Yeah.
That's what you
hear funny story about you say there, because Bruiser Brody, at the time, this, is the typical of our local guys and local promoters. We're all writing online. Johnny Payne's this. They were jealous because I was getting a Vegas shot and I was with the Sheik in Atlanta doing some matches. And so a special person in my life received this form that said, "Let's hope, Johnny Payne's this, Johnny Payne's that." And I'm going to be in Vegas that next day. And they go, "Let's hope his career comes full circle." And the kid said, "He reminds me of Bruiser Brody. Let's hope he gets stabbed to death this weekend in the locker room." So the person's very upset, shows me the paper. I stuffed the paper. Back then, there wasn't a bazillion online thing. I don't think the internet existed then. It was some sort of chat room thing. So I'm in the after show party with Sabu and Godfather and Robbie and Van Dam and all the boys and Power Twins. This guy goes, "Hey Johnny, I do this show and I call myself this." I go, "Really? Well, do you know this person?" And sorry, I don't know the exact terminology of the early internet then or whatever it was. And he goes, oh, yeah, he's right over there. I said, go get him. Tell him to meet me outside. And the guy starts panicking. I said, go do it. Go tell him to meet me outside. And I go, hey, champ. That was Sabu. I go, you want to watch something fun? Come out back with us. Mike, you might have been there. It was an after show party TC wanted us to go to and party with some of the gold level.
Was this Sack once he left Vegas for Sacramento?
No, we were in Vegas.
So, yeah.
And the dude comes out and I go, you want to explain this to me? And I push it on his chest, the paper. It said some really bad things, and then let's hope I come, a full circle and get stabbed to death. I go, explain yourself right now. And then I say, you know what? Don't explain yourself, because he started freezing up. I said, back up. Get ready. Okay, we're not going to talk. We're going to go. You're going to back up your paperwork. And he starts, and I was just like, and then the Sabu's like, Johnny, and I go, good enough. I got put over.
He crapped his pants. Was this a mark? Was this a mark? It wasn't Dave Meltzer, a sheet writer, a newsletter, dirt sheet.
But so it was like that.
Where did he have this?
Keyboard warrior. The keyboard warrior.
It was just.
So this was online. It wasn't in a newsletter or anything.
No. It was an online. Didn't they call them chat rooms back then?
Yeah, it was like the AOL grandstand thing that you.
I was for a brief period of time. I was when we ran bulletin boards. We had Thez, we had Missy Hyatt, Joe Pedicino, Afa and Sika, and quite a few others. So I was the board leader or forum leader. The grandstand, everybody was going. That was when we had Prodigy, which Bob Ryder had the wrestling there, CompuServe, and AOL. And so I was AOL's. There was other folks. Mike Johnson succeeded me in that role as the grandstand forum board leader. But there was a lot of cowardice.
People were internet brave then, and they're internet brave now. Hey, I had another question for you, John. Was there ever a match that you had where it was just so big you were just like, I can't believe I'm here wrestling in this match? Tell me what that was like.
The very first match, Los Angeles. I got Ric Flair's locker. He's pissed. Buzz puts him in his place, Magic Johnson's locker, and I'm freezing up. He's trying to do push-ups, trying to, those bands, we get pumped. Nothing's happening. I can't sweat. I'm drying up. It just ain't gonna happen. And my match was horrible. Go to the crowd, there's probably 1,000 people there, which is a 12,000 seat. I laid an egg that night, but I redeemed myself the second night because it was, it was real. Well,
let's ask about the progression, because who was the first promoter you worked mainly for? Wasn't it Woody Farmer?
No, God bless Woody. I liked him. He was like the one of the promoters between, I don't mean this to say anything bad. It was just the time between Roland, Jerry, Woody, Buzz, Paul. I mean, Roland, it was like you couldn't work for someone else. You're working once a month, once every 6 months, and you can't go work for someone. It was ridiculously stupid. Mike Modest, Mike Diamond, those guys were better than that. And, hey, man, I was going to go work for anybody. So I started with Buzz, worked with Buzz, and then, of course, he passed, obviously. Then I worked with Paul Brown, who was running some shows. Then Kirk. And then Kirk fired me, as I have that interview where I called him Vince Jr. He didn't like it. I was with Joe, and Kirk was putting us against these tag teams that were, it was just people were just beating up. I liked them and stuff, the guys, but he was given top billing to these other tag teams. And we did an interview. Of course, everything I said was kind of a little bit of a shoot anyway. And I go, and we were doing an interview, and Kirk's standing over to the side. You can't see him. And I go, so tell Vince Jr. over there to quit booking us with these undercard guys. And he didn't like it. And we didn't get brought back.
My quote about Kirk has always been that whenever you had a conversation with Kirk, you came away, or I would come away thinking that, I had a completely different conversation with Kirk than the one that Kirk had in his mind with me. When you had a conversation with him, whatever he was interpreting was something completely different than what everybody else in the world got from that conversation. And that's why it was so weird of a guy to work for. I did all my work, and I got to know Mike through All Pro Wrestling. So that's where I started out.
I was there, Johnny, I was there when it was just the school with Ricky Thompson, who was a long-time, super talented, but he was an enhancement talent for Roy Shire for years, the way Jerry Monty was. The way it was then, even before Roland got going, late 80s, early 90s, was Woody Farmer, Alexis Smirnoff, and Jerry Monty. They all did shows, but they would never work together where they could have actually drawn a house. Jerry Monty got a couple of good gigs at the Vallejo County Fair where the fans were all let in free. And so the hope was they would come to, later wrestling shows, but the whole venue was packed with like 3,000 people. And he had Buddy Rose and Don Morocco come in and Misty Blue Sims and all of her porn wrestling girls. And they were loaded shows. But Paul Brown, wasn't his work name the American Eagle?
Yeah.
Because Roland had a feud with him because I guess he caught Paul Brown tearing down his posters, and then he, it would go back and forth with the tearing down of the posters, like New Jersey Dennis Coralluzzo versus Todd Gordon or Joel Goodhart stuff. And Roland and Kirk would tear down each other's posters as well. So in the car with both of them. And then Kirk had
more like high school stuff. It was more like high school
stuff.
It was ridiculous.
Damaging, so stupid.
But you know what? And the thing with Kirk was he came, we've discussed this ad nauseum. Roland was a real student of the biz, and he would go to every Kirk show, take notes, like you would. Kirk would say they did 2 Big Time Wrestling versus APW attempts at a feud, and Kirk and Jason Styles would come in, and Kirk would say, let us do our thing, our little promo at the beginning, because I want to leave. I want to go to a Oakland A's baseball game with Jason or something like that. He wouldn't stay. It would never stay, and it never really got off the ground. And it was frustrating because, APW had good talent. So it was almost the same. So you have Woody, Alexis, and Jerry, and they're not working together. And then Roland and Kirk really didn't. And
they were afraid to work with Buzz. I mean, Buzz had me call one day to Jerry Monty and pretend I was a mark that wanted to join the school and say some things because rumor got back to Buzz, which was BS. One of the boys trying to stir it because they thought it'd be funny. That Jerry said this about Buzz. So I baited Jerry into saying something as a kayfabe on the phone. And then I handed it to Buzz, and Jerry, then, and Smirnoff apparently calls up a couple weeks later. Hey, we're good. I have nothing to do with you guys. I liked working with Alex Smirnoff. We went to a couple WWF matches, and they were talking to us about doing some things. They had Mike Modest and Mike Diamond up there, I think doing separate matches, but both really good workers. Well, you probably worked with them, Russ. Both really good.
That's it. Donovan Morgan trained me. And I worked with Shane Dynasty and and Modest. They've all been on the show, by the way. Tony Jones and the Ballards.
Has Mike Diamond been on? I haven't heard from him.
No, we haven't had Mike on the show. I would love to have.
He was working for either United or Delta Airlines, like Kirk White's timekeeper guy, Jim Davis.
Yeah, he was Max Justice when I was.
Yeah. I like him.
Mike had
I would love to have him on the show. If we can ever find him and drag him on the show, love to have him on.
I don't know where he is or what's he doing, but if you do ever talk to him, tell him Johnny Payne's giving his best.
Absolutely.
Boom
Boom Comedian was another guy that
was on disability from the airlines.
God bless him.
Yeah. No, it's funny that I was going to mention after the show, but I can mention it now. I'm amazed you and I, John, never did any shows together because we know like everybody in common. We did all these shows. I managed Mark Bison Smith when he was I think I did like the class of like who I worked with was right after you stopped working. You finished and I picked I started like right around 2000.
So Johnny, when did you slow down and or quote unquote retire. Nobody ever really retires, but
I wrestled 2 years ago with
Wow.
Jason Styles, my boy
Wow.
Jason. Well, I worked with Mike Welsh. Did any of you ever do his shows he did up and down? I was booking for him. I wrestled with him a few times in California. Well, several times.
Was he Modesto or Stockton?
We went in Ukiah, Eureka, Modesto, Stockton. Mike ran Reading, where I was up there with Jake Roberts and them. And but I was I was with Buffalo Jim, and we're out in Vegas, and I was probably 37, so 20 years ago. And the matches were just, really coming to a halt. And then I did the natural bodybuilding to try to have something to fill that void. And then about 2 or 3 years ago, Jason talked me into it. I had a great time, came back and worked 2 of his matches. Had to do a battle royal. I'm like, Jason, I'm 55 years. You want me to go over the top of the rope? And he goes, well, you win the whole thing, then you can wrestle. I can't remember their champ. Real good worker, though. Hispanic kid, buffed. I go, why ain't going 20 minutes with your champ here, buddy? That wouldn't be fair to him, because I'd have to go over in about 5. So, and he goes, do any way you want. Figure out how you want to go. I go, it's going to be like before, where I chase you and I jump over the rope. So when I went over that top rope, it had been 20 years, and normally I won battle royals. I flipped over the top. Do you guys know Dave Wasted? I guess his biggest claim to fame is his Sex Pistol-like band, like that kind of genre. Really? And his backyard wrestling. I like the kid. He could take it. When I flipped over the top, as I'm coming down, he's outside. He backs up. That's TV level smart. You guys would appreciate this. Yeah. He backs up, so I hit his back, breaks my fall, and I, fall about half the distance, hit the cement. I'm like, okay, hips are right, everything's okay. And I look up, I thought, oh man, Dave Wasted it. He lived his gimmick too, believe me. And Dave's fighting somebody over outside the ring. And they had those plastic things that say slippery when wet. I guess they knew I was going to make it. I picked that up and I hit David as hard as I could, trying to break it in half. It wouldn't break, but that was his receipt for being such a great guy. But then I put him over in the back with all the kids, the young guys. Said, man, that's TV level talent. You can't draw everything out. Sometimes you got to come up with your own decision on what to do to make the show better.
Were you, when you did work with Kirk, were you around when at the early days of Kirk starting, when he gave him his TV time, and Reggie Bennett was coming in, who was huge?
Yeah. I worked with Kurt in his first several matches. I think it was Smirnoff was stealing money from him to book guys, and then he let Alex, and that's okay. I don't hold any ill will, because I knew I was being a little bit of a hard ass in the back. So Kurt said, well, I'm going to move a different direction. You and Smirnoff no more. You and Joe Applebaum no more. Okay, whatever. But yeah, I remember. She was she was working in Japan, I think.
Yeah, she was doing good, because when I was there in 90 and 91, she was, I would go and cover her shows and blab with her. And she had a program with Denise Haas, who was also a huge female strong woman. But Reggie now is, she works security at a Walmart. I forget if it's Mississippi or something. I've been in touch with her, trying to get her, on the show and just talking about it, because she was huge. It was the secondary women's promotion to All Japan Women. It was JWP, the one that had Cutie Suzuki and Devil Masami and Dynamite Kansai and really great talent that, because a lot of them would, anyway, I'll try to put you in touch, or maybe when I finally get her on this show, we'll have you on, because I think that would be a great surprise. She, if you remember, Kirk had Jessica Sato, who was engaged to a male wrestler, and Jessica Sato on his TV, she was working, and Reggie took a liking to her and helped train her a little bit further. But then she took her to Japan to JWP as her niece or her cousin, and they worked as a tag team for JWP. So Jessica Sato, Black Ice was her work name, if you recall that. But It's a real small world. We're winding down here, so I want to make sure you plug any of your social media.
Here he is.
Oh, oh my gosh, what a cute dog. And you know what? He looks like the dog we used to own.
It's Tanner.
Is he a Ridgeback mix?
Yes.
Yeah, he looks just like Captain. Oh my God, he looks like. Does he have a little white dot in his chest?
Tiniest.
Oh my God, he could be a cousin of my of the dog that we had for 15 years. Wow. What's his name?
Tanner.
Wow,
yeah.
He looks a
He's
lot
real
like.
Snug He's real snug though. He's a stiff one.
Does his tail curl? Does his tail curl up?
Yeah.
He could be a cousin of the dog we had. You'll get a lot. How old is he?
3.
3.5. Captain lived to age 15. So hopefully you get a lot of good years out of Tanner. He's probably pretty smart dog, isn't he? You know, or he gets by in his looks. Yeah, but he knows he can get by in his looks. That's the way our dog Captain was.
Johnny, let's have you plug anything you'd like to plug. And what do you do now? Even though are you accepting dates for quality? Not bullshit?
No, I have a girlfriend. I'm incommitted.
No, we meant for a living. What do you do?
I was kidding. No, I don't want to wrestle again. It's another person's era. The new guys, let them go. Although I will probably do one more so my school district can get out there because, I'm a school teacher. I'd like to do something with Big Fonz. Maybe go out here in Concord with, the guy Leonard Skinner out there in Concord. Love those guys out there. Might do one or two. If I do, I would definitely call you guys. But I was training for strongman and powerlifting. And then I got that over 50-year-old shingles virus. So that kind of knocked me out of it. But I'm coming back, getting ready, getting the strength up. And Alan Bolte said to make sure I plugged him. Mike already gave a beautiful plug to Alan Bolte. I've known him for 30 years. I remember the day I met him. Mike, you were probably at the show. Incidental High School for Paul Brown. And I met Irish Pat Lawler. My buddy was there.
I know Pat since he was a little kid. We'd go to his house. He'd invite us all for all the pay-per-views, the WWF pay-per-views. Irish Pat Lawler, the pride of the Sunset District. Yes. That high school you're talking about, I lived blocks from there in Alameda. I was on the water in Alameda, Bay Farm Island.
Yeah, I remember that. And Pat, I remember that you guys knew each other. We did a TV show you did.
I did a TV show for 12 years, and Pat came when we did I like doing, I had my regular weekly show, but I did these 2-hour This Is Your Life shows. So Pat came when we did one for Roy Shire, and I did several for both of his 2 announcers, Walt Harris and later Hank Renner. I did one for Ray, 2 for Ray, 1 for Kenji Shibuya, all of these legends.
Kenji, yeah. I worked with him as my manager a couple times. Kenji and Alex Smirnoff, and I remember Pepper Gomez. I worked with Pepper, and
he lived in Alameda on Santa Clara Boulevard, right?
Yeah, his legs were really bad, and Jerry had that bouncy ring, and Jerry wants to put Pepper over as the only guy. That was the
last thing I wanted to remind you about, because when it was the Jerry Monty era, all of those guys had mistresses that had no clue. Edwina Burns was Jerry Monty's mistress.
Yeah.
She eventually got his ring and all of his stuff. But when Woody Farmer had the TV tapings at Newark before Kirk got it, the slot and everything, Kathy Kearney, she was the one who came in the back, and she was like berating Chris Jericho, who had just come in from Tenru's promotion in Japan. He was just a couple of years into the business, but already this legend working in Europe, Mexico, and Japan, Lionheart Jericho. And she was reading this guy, the Riot Act. I don't know who you think you are, blah, blah, blah. And I said, you have no clue who the fuck this guy is. He's
going to become.
But these gals were sassy. They had no knowledge, yet they thought they were running the dressing rooms for Woody. Even Alexis had one, Smirnoff.
Yeah, I worked on that TV show with Jerry and Jim Gorman. Remember him?
Oh, yeah.
Gentleman Jim. He goes, hey, I'm gonna bleed. So when you hit me with your chain, I'm coming down. And I'm gonna come up, and don't be shocked at how much I'm gonna bleed. I'm like, Jim, you know where I was trained, what I've done, where I see. So I hit Jim with that chain. I guess he took it personal when I said it back to him, although I liked him. He goes down, he comes up, and I'm like, oh, he looks like a tuna on a fishing boat, man. Jim was bleeding all over the place. It was disgusting. I was like, okay, you go pee yourself. My God.
Wow.
Sure enough was there. Earthquake Ferris and
Yeah, it was like when Manny Fernandez came in to run the school at APW, the boot camp, for a little while, and every match that he had at the gym that I call the dojo, but it was just the gym, a garage, really, he'd bleed like an SOB, just for no reason. It was just, every match was blood. Do you have anything else left to plug? We're running out of time. I will bring you back definitely when I have somebody.
Yeah, we definitely want to have you back.
Yeah, time flew by.
But also Earthquake Ferris, is he still with us, I hope?
Yes, he is. He's a good friend of mine. What a wonderful human being. Earthquake taught out at Antioch High for many years. We were running those fundraiser at Antiochs together. The Road Warriors, just before Hawk passed. Jimmy Snuka wrestled, God bless him, Boom Boom Kamini. Sergeant Slaughter, George Animal Steel. We ran some really good fundraisers out there with Earthquake.
Wow. Yeah, what a really great guy. And he was
about the show.
Star.
Love to have him on the show one of these.
I'm going to run, we're closing the show now, but definitely I want to get Earthquake Ferris on the show, bring you with him, because this guy was a star on AWA TV. At least he was enhancement, but he had a name, and that kind of helped his, he made it that way.
And let our fans know how they can get a hold of you by social media if you're interested in having any of our fans contact you, or any way that they want to check out what you have on the internet or anything like that.
Yeah, go to YouTube, type in Psycho Johnny Payne, but one N on Johnny and an E on the end of Payne. I don't know, Russ, I'm not on the social media. Go through mine, he'll show something, I guess.
Very good. Hey, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, guys.
Have a great holiday season, and we'll definitely have you on again in the new year.
My pleasure, man. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Good night, everyone.
I love Johnny Psycho Payne. Johnny, thank you so much. Happy holidays, no matter what you celebrate, to everybody. Happy New Year. Let's have a great, healthy, non-COVID 2024.
Very good. Good night, everyone.
Thanks, guys.